This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Here's your host, Brandon Contes.
Alrighty, welcome to episode 120 of the Awful Announcing Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Contes, and this week we were joined by Joe Davis. Joe, of course, the voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He is also one of Fox's top announcers for the NFL, and he is the top announcer for Major League Baseball, coming off what was one of the best World Series in baseball history. So Joe joined us to kind of put a bow on the baseball season. We discussed the 18-inning game in Game 3. We discussed some of the biggest moments of Game 7. Joe told us what he thought his best call of the series was, and some of the calls that he would like to have again. We talked about the importance of Dave Roberts pushing all the right buttons and the celebrity that Shohei Ohtani is, just getting to watch him up close and regularly throughout the season. Joe also talked about some of the accusations of being biased as the regular TV voice of the Dodgers, and some of the pushback he received about being there for the championship parade right after calling the World Series for Fox. But he was great on the podcast this week. He did an awesome job of giving us some insight into what it was like to call one of the best World Series in baseball history. So please make sure you rate and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you also subscribe to Awful Announcing's YouTube page, and enjoy this week's episode of the Awful Announcing Podcast with guest Joe Davis. All right, you can hear him calling NFL games for Fox. He is the voice of the Dodgers. He's the voice of Major League Baseball. He's still relatively fresh off calling one of the best World Series I can remember. He is Joe Davis. Joe, thanks so much for joining us on the Awful Announcing Podcast today. There's a serious case to be made that the 2025 World Series was the greatest ever, and you were on the call for it. Has that sunk in at all?
No, not at all. Even to hear you say that makes me chuckle and shake my head. When you're in it, it's like, man, this is great, and it's what you live for. But to have that true perspective to take in all of time, all the World Series ever played, I definitely don't have it yet, and I think it'll take some time before that sinks in, that it's even in that conversation.
When you're calling a 7-game series that is as close as this World Series was, are you able to enjoy it as a baseball fan?
Yes, I was. I think I'm getting better at doing that. That's not the easiest thing for me. I'm wired to kind of grip the wheel a little bit too tight probably, and try to be perfect and not allow myself to enjoy it. But I definitely enjoyed this one more than I've probably allowed myself to enjoy ones in the past. Game 7, not quite as much. I think that's the nature of a Game 7, that you're just so locked in on making sure you don't miss anything, that I didn't have quite as much fun Game 7 as I did every game leading up to it. But big picture, as fulfilling, and it's always fulfilling whether it's fun or not, but as fulfilling and, to your question, fun as anything I've ever done.
Do you think you would be able to enjoy the next time you if you get to call a Game 7 of the World Series again? Will you be able to enjoy it more, having been through it, or you think it'll just be equally nerve-wracking?
No, I hope I do. I actually, so we came off of finishing up the World Series, and I got right back into NFL prep and unpacking the bags and saying hey again to my family and everything. So last week was busy, but first day this week, I spent some time just kind of sitting there and thinking about Game 7 and how it went, and what I would like to do differently if I do get another one, and how I can be better, what I liked, and just really doing a deep dive kind of autopsy on the game. And I hope that what I took away from that will help me be better next time. And a big part of that is not making it different than any other game. And I don't know that I proactively did that. I think that I probably just, subconsciously made it a bigger deal than the other games. And it is, but I don't know, that's the healthiest decision to subconsciously make. So yeah, I think that for sure, every time you do something the first time, it's a learning process. And the goal is to hopefully be better the next time you get to do it.
Have you listened back to the entire World Series? Will you listen back to the entire World Series if you haven't yet?
Yeah, I listen back to during the series. I'll go on every travel day. I'll go back and take a listen and, to a few innings at least and go to the big parts of the game, the big moments of the game, and calibrate and see where I'm at. I went into that day yesterday, that Game 7 autopsy day, with my computer with me, planning on going back and going into the nitty-gritty of it and critiquing myself deeply. But I wound up not even turning it on. I was able to take what I needed, I think, just by kind of thinking back and reflecting on it without turning the tape on.
The 2024 World Series, the Freddie Freeman Grand Slam, I think that'll be the signature moment from that series. As we move further away from the 2025 World Series, what do you think is going to be the most talked about or memorable moment from the World Series?
There are so many, Brandon. I think that probably the Miguel Rojas home run in the 9th inning, when you combine what was at stake right there, they looked like they were dead, with the fact that it was a guy who had hit a handful of home runs all year, hadn't been in the lineup until the day before. All those things, I think, lead to that being the moment that's maybe not the most obvious game-winning moment. Will Smith's home run would be that. But I think probably the Rojas home run will stand the test of time best. And then I also go back to the double play to finish off Game 6, where Dodgers had to win that game just to stay alive. Blue Jays had second and third, nobody out, and in the blink of an eye, the game's over. So I think for the people that will remember watching it, they will remember that moment. I don't know if that moment will stand up 50 years from now when somebody who wasn't alive during the World Series thinks of it and studies the 25 World Series. But for the people that watch it, I think that will stand.
The Miguel Rojas play, throwing out IKF at the plate. I think like that, the play was amazing, but I also think the home plate umpire, I think it was Jordan Baker, him getting the call right is one of the most important moments of, like, that's not going to be looked back on as the biggest play or anything like that. But because can you imagine first if he calls him safe and the Blue Jays start celebrating only to then have it overturned? And similarly, if the call was overturned to give Toronto the win, like just how anticlimactic that would have been. So like just him getting that play correct in that moment was so important for just the way the entire World Series continued to feel.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't thought of his role in it, and usually that's how it is with umpires, right? We only talk about them when they get something wrong, but you're right. For him to get that call right, and especially because on a call that close, a lot of times it's just the call is going to stand.
Yeah.
So even if they had gone to replay and seen that his toe maybe didn't leave the ground, if the call had been safe, I don't know if there was enough there. I'd have to go back and look to overturn it. I remember sitting there during the challenge thinking, oh no, like this is not how you want this amazing World Series to end. And like, can you imagine either team, any team losing a World Series like that? So I'm glad that that's not how it was decided. You never know. Those Game 7s, is it going to be a moment where there's a hero, or is it going to be Bill Buckner?
Yeah. Yes. Like in that moment, are you thinking about how you're potentially going to call it if they were to come back and say the call is overturned and the run counts? Like how are you going to finish that game in the series that way?
I think in that moment it's more just you trust yourself to be authentic and genuine, because whatever reaction I'm going to have, it's going to be real. And I think that's, especially in a moment like that, what that would call for. I don't think you'd want to be anticipating too much, like I do like to do, and like I do think is an important part of this job. But I think that would have been a moment and was a moment where I was just ready to react with whatever I heard.
Do you have a favorite call from the 2025 World Series? Like if you could pick one play that people will hear over and over again, what would that be?
One play, I don't have one that pops right to mind necessarily. I'm proud of the 18-inning game. I think that's, however many hour baseball game, and people will say it's awesome that you maintained your energy and everything. And my thing is, like, I would pay you to be able to do a 18-inning World Series game. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, one of the all-time great World Series games. So for me to keep up my energy or whatever, I don't deserve any kind of medal for that. But it was, I think, more than the energy thing. It's allowing yourself over an 18-inning game to just kind of throw your hands up and have some fun. I don't get a chance to do that usually in the World Series because that's not the place for it. It's not the place to be messing around and be goofy. So I was proud that the 18-inning game was an opportunity, I think, for John and I both to do the job of a very serious and important game while also showing a personal side of ourselves a little bit and allowing that to come through.
Yeah, I know you made some headlines about that you didn't pee during the 18-inning game, which is crazy. But how was it exhausting? Like, was it mentally draining? Was it a toll on your voice?
It's all on my voice for sure. It started to, I mentioned it on the air at one point. I popped some painkillers.
Yeah.
Some painkillers because it was starting to hurt. Just talking 7 hours straight. It was not like at the end of it, I was like, holy cow, I feel like I got hit by a bus. It was not at any point something where I said, okay, dig deep. You got to dig deep here. Like I said, I was just loving it and so thankful to have a chance to do it. I will say, though, they say your brain, like our brains can only focus for a finite amount of time, 90 minutes, 2 hours or whatever, where you can be intensely focused. I did find myself early on in extra innings having to be like, come on, like lock in, just because my brain naturally was wanting to drift and not be as locked in. And it's like, no, you can't drift right now. The next moment could be the one you got to be ready for. So definitely had to pull myself back in a few times.
Yeah, I know they had they were passing the fruit around in the dugout. Were you hoping that you were going to get another turkey or any meat that you could carve brought up into the booth during that game?
Yeah, I didn't know. They actually did bring us a fruit plate.
You got the fruit
right
plate
after that. We did get a fruit plate, and it was great fruit. That's more pineapple than I've had in years. Just started crushing it there midnight or whatever it was. The turkey thing, we apparently got a big box of Pepto-Bismol sent to the Fox offices because that turned into such a thing with the turkey looking pink. I do think that the turkey looked pink because it was a smoked turkey for whatever it's worth. But man, yeah, that turned into two things that turned into big things that I didn't feel coming. Turkey being pink and me not going pee during the 18. I got more messages about that after I did that interview than I did anything during the World Series.
So the turkey, though, it did look pink in the booth. I wasn't sure.
I didn't even really realize it.
Okay, you didn't.
Yeah, actually, the first note that I got that something was off with the turkey, Derek Jeter texted me and said, "Oh my God, don't eat it! It's pink." I guess they were dying in the green room, ready to do the post game show, and they flagged it first, but they weren't the only ones.
Was there a point that did it feel that this World Series was building towards repeating history with the Blue Jays potentially winning on a walk-off homer? Like, were you ready with the possible Joe Carter reference if that happened?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to, especially when they go home up 3-2, 2 games to win 1.
Right.
And the way that they've been winning late and rallying, coming from behind, yeah, that's definitely in play. And anytime that I get into a clinch situation or a big situation like that, I'm trying to think about the history. That's a big part of it. You think of the context of the shorter term history of the season, even shorter than that, the context of the series and the postseason, how they kept on coming from behind. And then you do think the longer term. So all those things were factoring in as I was going into those games.
How do you balance all of that pregame prep work and the stories and the historical references and context? How do you balance that with what's actually happening during the game?
That's the whole trick, I guess. And I'm not great at it. I'm certainly not perfect at it, but I think the first thing is being conscious of having a balance. You do the homework, but the game then unfolds. All the homework's done before what matters actually happens. So you just do your best to fill up that tank with context and then continue to take it in as the game goes on and hopefully put it all together and be ready to come up with the right thing at the right time.
What is the percentage of that homework that actually gets used during the game?
It's hard to say.
Do you feel, is there usually a lot of stuff that's left on the table and kind of left unused and unsaid?
There is, yeah. And I think that now you get into an 18-inning game, and that may change. I think that a lot of the prep work that we do, you do the prep, and then it's different in a 7-game series because you're probably going to use it over a 7-game series, especially when there are as many innings in a series as this one with the extra innings. Right. But like an NFL game, for example, you go in, you prep for an entire week. You go in, probably 30% of what you prep actually goes on the air. You never want to, in TV terms, kick over the bucket, right? Just for the heck of it. You prepped it, so you use it. You never want to jam stuff in.
We mentioned the Miguel Rojas, the home run, and just after not being in the lineup, how great was Dave Roberts, especially in Game 7, just kind of pushing all the right buttons.
Yeah, I think it's an understated, underrated part of the whole thing. The timing of those moves, getting Rojas in there when Pages hadn't hit in a month, and Rojas didn't hit in Game 6, but several key defensive plays, and they used on the back end of the double play to finish off Game 6, and that was not an easy play. He had made a bunch of plays before that, and then delivering the big swing in Game 7. Well, Pages going in after getting benched, was that like 2 or 3 pitches before the fly ball that Ernie Clement hits? I don't think Tommy Edman gets to that ball. So now maybe Kike Hernandez does and doesn't get run over by Tommy Edman like he did Andy Pages, but I think the World Series might end right there if Dave Roberts doesn't make that move then. And that's not even to speak of the pitching changes and the way that he managed a staff where the bullpen was not good, and they had to find a way to paper over that.
Dave Roberts is only 53 years old. With the team that he has, like, he has the opportunity to become and cement himself as one of the best managers ever. Does he seem like somebody who has the drive to maybe keep doing this for another 10 years or so? Have you ever talked to him about that? How long he might want to manage?
Yeah, I haven't talked specifics with him, but I see no signs of him being ready to start to even think about wrapping this up. Well, he did I think a 3-year deal prior to this season, so he's got another couple of years guaranteed here. I would be surprised if there wasn't another deal beyond that. He's in great health, like you said, 53 years old, loves what he's doing. It's really remarkable the continuity that they have right from the top. With Mark Walter to Andrew Friedman through Dave Robertson, much of his staff. These guys have been around for the entire run. And you see across baseball, even the more stable situations, you never see a decade where everybody stays together. And I don't think that's lost on him how special a situation he's got.
Was it strange at all that the Blue Jays also had their own TV broadcast during the World Series? Like, did you talk to Dan Shulman and Buck Martinez at all throughout the series?
Yeah, quite a bit. And since we were on the American League side and with Fox, we were with them all month. And they were there the whole month as well. Neighboring booths. They got to keep their home booth. We were in the visiting booth, but amazing booth, by the way. Love doing games there. And that's the loudest building I've ever been in. But yeah, we were with them each day. We would go in to do managers meetings, and they would follow us, or vice versa. And that was cool. Dan's a guy that's been a mentor to me and a friend to me. So having him right there was a special part of it.
I'll preface this by saying that I'm a Mets fan. I thought you did a great job going back a year to the NLCS last season. I thought it felt like you were calling the series down the middle. Similarly, I thought you always met the moment for both teams in this World Series. That being said, I'm sure you get a lot of accusations of being biased simply because you are the Dodgers announcer as well. Do you see that criticism? Do you hear that criticism?
I try not to. I know it's there. One of the best things I did before I did my first World Series, I deleted my Twitter. I think I still have the account, but I gave my agent the password and said, change it. I'm deleting it off my phone. If we ever need to get into it, we can. So I don't hunt for it because I get it. It comes with the territory. These are exciting, highly emotional times as fans. It's what makes sports great, that we all get a little bit irrational at points. Dodger fans are going to be upset that I'm getting excited for the other team. The other team's going to be upset that I'm the Dodger guy. And I get it. I'm not going to win. If that's my scoreboard trying to please people on that, I'm going to drive myself crazy. So I know it's there. I'm not burying my head in the sand, but I do my best to not get bothered by it.
Is it hard to go from local where it's okay to root for the Dodgers to national where it's not okay to root for the Dodgers? Do the two broadcasts feel different?
Yeah, here's where it's hard, Brandon. It's more in how I frame the information, like in my head. So it's a full-time job to know the Dodgers and to do those games on an everyday basis. that's a different organizing of the information and presenting of the information than I do on a national level. So it's almost harder to do the Dodgers in the postseason than it is to say do the Blue Jays in the postseason, where I'm picking it up fresh and have this blank canvas to build my prep on. I got to tear down everything I know with the Dodgers, or at least how I know it, to represent it. So that's the more challenging thing, as opposed to getting. I don't know that I get a whole lot less excited for the Dodgers in the postseason. I'm a pretty excitable guy even during the regular season. I still get excited. If you listen to Dodger games, I'm happy getting excited for the other team too. So it's not like I have to come that far up to get excited for the Blue Jays. I love baseball, and I get excited when I see great plays. So the excitement part of it, not as hard. It's more the framing of the information.
Did you see the criticisms from Ariel Helwani and Chris Russo that you were at the World Series parade right after calling the World Series?
Yeah, somebody sent me the Mad Dog one and said that they were pretty sure it was a badge of honor that he had a rant about me. Yeah, I saw it.
I'm a Knicks fan, and if the Knicks ever win a championship and Mike Breen is on the call for ESPN and ABC, like he better be at the parade the next day. There would be an uproar if he skipped it. So I thought it was a pretty silly criticism. But did you in the moment, did you have any reservations about doing the parade right after calling the World Series?
I did it last year too. I don't know. Mad Dog was on vacation that week or what. Or just didn't have. Or he had better stuff to talk about. It's another one of those things where it's like I'm not gonna not do it just because Mad Dog thinks that I shouldn't. And I know that Mad Dog's not the only person that thinks I shouldn't. But I have two jobs. It's a unique situation. I'm pretty sure Dan Schulman was going to have a hand in the parade if the Blue Jays won it.
Yeah.
So like it is what it is, sort of. And I'm glad that I was on Mad Dog's radar, that he cared enough that he could have it. I'm going to wear it like a badge of honor.
We talked about being able to appreciate the World Series in a 7-game series and just how great it was. Do you get to appreciate watching and calling games with Shohei Ohtani regularly?
Yeah, I really do. And it's not hard to lose sight of how special he is, because it's like once a week he does something that forces you to be like, oh my gosh, this guy. We're watching. I always think of, I'm looking over here, my bookshelf over here, and seeing big old thick bios on Babe Ruth, where it just says Ruth on the spine, or Williams, Ted Williams, Koufax, these all-time baseball players. That's what we're watching being written day to day here. He's the kind of guy that our kids and our grandkids and their grandkids are going to know about. And to be able to watch him every day, it's amazing. You think about the contract the Dodgers gave him, and at the time it was like, oh my gosh. I'm thinking that's probably paid for itself times a few, just based on the off the field stuff, not even to mention how spectacular he's been on the field. So a transformational player to take an organization that's already considered one of the best in sports and to elevate it the way that he has.
What has surprised you about getting to kind of follow and cover Ohtani up close now regularly throughout the season compared to when you were seeing him less regularly with the Angels?
His ability to meet the moment, whether it's something fun like a bobblehead night, he seems like he homers every time, or the 50-50 game last year where he reaches 50-50 with one of the greatest games ever played. It's just like anytime there's a chance for it to be even more special than it could be by just checking a box, like he finds a way to do more than just check the box. His ability to read the room, read the moment, and almost like give a wink to the moment, like I got you, and then some. It's not just 2 or 3 times that it's happened. It's almost every time there's a moment to seize, he does that.
You mentioned the 50-50 game, and that just kind of reminded me the last time we had you on the podcast a year ago, I remember you had mentioned that you would have liked to redo the 40-40 call for Ohtani. Was there any call from this World Series that you would have liked to have back?
Game 7, the Miguel Rojas home run, I needed to have something after No Way Miguel Rojas that said Game 7 is tied, or has tied Game 7. the Will Smith home run needed something that right after the ball went out to reference the fact that it was the first time that the Dodgers had led in that game. And then the final call, I don't mind what I said. I think it would have fit better if it was a pop fly for the last out, and I could have set it up while the ball was in the air. It became too much after the ball had popped the mitt to get all that out. So, yeah.
When did you feel like you officially became the voice of Major League Baseball? Like, was it when you got the job? Was it your first All-Star game, your first World Series? Was there a moment where that kind of sunk in, that having that responsibility?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one moment, or even if I do like consciously think about that. As far as consciously or being conscious of it, back to when the job was offered right away, for sure. And that's how Brad Zager presented it to me. We want you to be the voice of baseball, and to hear that right then, that was a heavy thing for somebody who grew up dreaming of doing exactly that. But I don't know if it's something that I think about necessarily, or I as time has gone on, if I'd say I feel more like this or that, or any kind of label with it. Certainly more comfortable every year. And like we talked about at the start of this, first World Series Game 7 I've done, that was always the dream of dreams to do that. I hope I get another one or two of them and be a little bit better and a little bit more comfortable each time I do. But I don't know if I could point to one moment where I've said that I'm that, or I've made it in any way.
Yeah, I know you said obviously you don't pay attention to Twitter. You don't even have access to your account anymore. But I'd say go back to 2023, there were probably a lot more people saying that they miss Joe Buck calling the World Series, and you almost never see that anymore. And I would say similarly for me, like I miss Joe Buck calling baseball games. I don't miss him on the World Series anymore. Like now I turn the World Series on, I expect and I want to hear Joe Davis. And I think that for me as a fan, I think that switch kind of flipped last year. And maybe part of that was just because like Diamondbacks, Rangers, just, I don't know, it didn't quite have the juice that, Dodgers, Yankees did. So like we were able to kind of get into it a little bit more last year. But I do think that's obviously a testament to you that you're able to kind of win people over so quickly. Did you feel like you were able to be yourself in the booth right away when you took over for Buck?
No. I think that throughout my career, I've been in positions where, like, look, I'm the luckiest son of a gun in the world to be in those positions, but human nature in those spots following Vin Scully and following Joe Buck is to try to be perfect and try to be a little bit like the person that you're following, two of the all-time greats. Vin, the greatest ever to do it. Joe, the guy that I grew up wanting to be like, idolizing as the voice of the World Series of my childhood. So it's never something where it's like, okay, I can't be me. It's just, it's leaning so far in the other direction of, okay, I've got to be perfect here. I've got to nail it to justify my existence here. Like, I don't belong following Vin Scully. I don't belong in the same chair as Joe Buck. So I better not mess up even a hair. I think that more than saying I can't be myself blocks me from being myself at first. And the only way to open up more, I think, is with time. And I've been with the Dodgers now 10 seasons, the 4 years in the chair that Joe was in doing the World Series. And I think as time goes on, more and more, I loosen my grip a little bit, let myself come through. And, hopefully people can come to enjoy that.
Were you impressed by Kevin Burkhardt going from the World Series right to calling an NFL game for Fox? I think he had Vikings Lions the next day, 15 hours or so later.
Yeah, he's one of my best buddies. I was sitting down in the lobby in Toronto getting ready for Game 6 and Game 7, and had my headphones on, and had the look on like, don't bug me. But he's one of the people that knows it doesn't matter. You can bug me. He came up each day and sat down with me, and we chatted about his prep for the Lions game there. And I think that he was probably hoping that it ended in 6, so he didn't have to do that overnight trip there. But I think that, yeah, impressed, but not surprised. And also, I'm sure Kevin would tell you too, we're sick, and that for us, like, that's the best. It's crazy, and it takes a lot of time to get ready for. But we're talking about sports, getting paid to talk about sports, and have to talk about more sports. They put a Z on it there, more sports with a Z when you're talking about it like that. Like, let's do it. So yeah, impressed, not surprised, but I know he'd tell you he dug it.
Last thing, I'm just curious. Last week, Donald Trump was in the booth for the Commanders game with Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma. Is that an opportunity? Like, if that's something that Fox had said, hey, this is what we're doing, are you like, all right, like, this is the president of the United States, this is cool? Or is it more just like, obviously he comes with a lot of, is very polarizing and everything. So like we talk about fans getting upset over accusing of you of being biased when you're calling a game just based on the teams that are involved. So like, obviously, that people are going to have a lot to say about sharing the booth with the president, and especially when it's Donald Trump. So is that an opportunity that you would just kind of like relish, or is it an opportunity that you would almost just say rather if you didn't put that on us?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about how I would handle. I guess my first reaction would be, wow, like, the president of the United States, no matter who it is going to join us in the booth. Awesome. Second thing would be like, okay, I got to be prepared for this, no matter who the guy is, the man or woman is, got to be prepared to make sure I nail this, and probably would spend as much time getting ready for that interview as I did getting ready for the game once I found that out. And then the third thing I'd tell you is, I'm like the least political person that you've ever met. It's maybe a strength, maybe a weakness. I'm sure people take sides on that too, whether I should be more political. But like, I don't know. I would just show up and do the job as best I can, no matter who it was. And I guess part of that is I'm armored by the fact that I try to just not be political.
Yeah, and I think to Kenny Albert and Vilma's credit, like, they got through 9-10 minutes with the president, and really there hasn't been much backlash to that spot, which impressive that they're able to pull that off.
Yeah.
You have Seahawks Rams this week.
Yes, how about that? So fired up for this game.
Amazing. Yeah, for sure. Two potential MVP candidates at quarterback. Right. Great stuff.
And
all right, Joe. Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Perfect for you.
Yeah.
Joe, I know I can't keep you for too much longer today. I really appreciate the time that you did give. You were great. Thank you so much for doing the podcast today.
Of course. I enjoyed it, man. Thanks for having me.
That is Joe Davis. I'm Brandon Contes. This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast. Please also subscribe to Awful Announcing's YouTube page. But regardless of how you consume Awful Announcing and the Awful Announcing Podcast, thanks for listening, and be good.
Thanks for listening to the Awful Announcing Podcast. For the latest news spanning the sports media landscape and more, check out awfulannouncing.com and follow us at Awful Announcing.